Alright. Hello, everyone. My name is Kabam, and I am an ex-SBL Pro ADC, or as most people in my casual games tend to remind me, washed up shitty pro that sucks and has to play casuals to feel better. um, this is a video intended to clarify on what it takes to be a pro player for those who are going through the Challenger Cup to try and get into the SPL, as well as an opportunity for those from other games to apply this as well. I don't know that this will be 100% accurate, so the disclaimer as shown here. This is obviously going to be my opinion based on the experiences I have had, and it is not the end-all be-all. I do think that this will be valuable information, and I do also think that it is necessary for players who think they deserve to be in the a professional scene to understand why they may not have quite made it just yet. Um, so the reason that my video has credibility, which I think is important to establish, is that I failed to keep myself in the pro scene. Going through this is going to be sort of therapeutic for me. I think I need to do this for myself more than anything, to help me understand what I need to improve on and to understand why I failed and how I can move forward. Um, I also have experience on multiple teams before I ever made it in the pro league. Um, so I have lots of experiences from very low end teams to, low mid SPL. So I think it's something that comes into play, as well as coaching what I thought to be a team that had great capability to be one of the powerhouses of the SPL that fell short, which I think is on me. Um, so, without further ado, we're going to crack into this list. So, number one, and to put this into perspective, I jotted this all down, so it's not necessarily going to be in order of important to least. It's just sort of a guideline to help me not stray too far from what I'm trying to discuss. So the first thing is you need to have discipline. Discipline is so much more powerful than motivation. It is so fucking easy to be motivated to keep playing a game when you are winning. The reality is only one team, or one or two teams, is going to be winning most of the very top tier teams. It's very easy to be motivated when you are in those top two spots as far as morale. Teams such as Energy have been cited saying that being at the very, very top, it's hard to stay motivated. So there is obviously an exception to that, but for the most part, motivation as a driving force is very easy. I would say probably between like places 2 and 4 in a league. Anything that's not, in the bottom half, I think it's very easy to be motivated because you're so close to being the best, but you're not quite. For everyone else, and those players included, it is more important to have discipline. Discipline is something that a lot of players, myself included, lack. The ability to keep playing and keep improving even when you don't want to. Even when you're like, shit, man, I have to go scrim. I have to go to practice, I have to show up, and I have to play these games that are mentally draining and can be very exhausting and aggravating to play if something goes wrong. Being able to go into it level-headed and know that, this is my job and this is what I need to do, and I do it because I love it. And knowing that even on your bad days that you can go back to it is important. Number two, constantly making goals both in the short term and the long term are super, super important. This was something that I wish I had taken into consideration last year before I made it into the SPL. My entire time playing Smite, which I've been playing more than just about every single person that plays the game right now. I started um, when Guan was released Guan Yu. So that was late June, early July of 2012. And my goal all that time was to be at the pro level. And I spent so much of my time just trying to get there. That was always my end goal, was get in the SPL. Or whatever the top was. SPL obviously wasn't there the whole time, but it was always to be like on one of the best teams. And when I was approached by DJ to be on the team he was forming for the fall split of last year in COG, after that whole spiel happened with the team essentially disbanding after Baskin left for C9, my opportunity was granted to me. And what happened was I had achieved my end game, which was simply to get there. And this was where my lack of discipline really showed. My motivation for trying so hard all the time was gone. I had achieved that goal, and I didn't have anything supporting myself to continue to get better. And I'm probably one of the only people to make it into the Pro League and immediately just get worse. So setting goals outside of just getting there is super important. Always having an objective in mind for your personal growth is super important. Number 3, understanding what it means to grind. This is something that is going to be different for every player. My opinion is that you need to understand what your team wants going into scrims. Each team is going to be different. Old COG, and this is actually transferred over into what Eager is now, their goal in scrimming is not to win the scrims. Winning the scrims is meaningless because winning scrims doesn't win you SPL games, doesn't win you lands. Scrims are an environment to learn, to try new things, to develop a meta that fits your play style that can combat what is currently doing well in the competitive setting. That is something that has been very successful for those group of players for a very long time. There are other teams that put a lot of value on winning scrims, and they will try their hardest every scrim, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are critical of that. Some people think playing just to win the scrim is bad, and there's merit to that. If you're always trying your hardest, people know what to expect when they play against you if they've scrimmed you. They know what gods you prioritize, and that can make planning a pick and ban phase very easy against you. But I do think that there is value in trying to do your best in every scrim in that regard, in the sense that if you are always pushing yourself to do your best, then eventually your best will be your better, if that makes sense. Your good gets better and your best becomes more phenomenal as you're always trying to improve and be like the most cutting edge mechanical player you can be. Outside of scrims, there's the issue of getting in good practice and using habits or developing good habits in solo queue. Sounds counterintuitive, but if you're going to play outside of scrims, this happens in Smite quite a bit more than I think other MOBAs, like League in particular. They have long scrim days. You're going to find yourself going into ranked, and it's going to be frustrating because you're going to be used to a team environment where people are more reactive and more attentive. There are going to be things that you can do in solo queue that you can get away with that you will never get away with in competitive. And that is why sometimes you see such a divide between really great ranked players and really great competitive players. So what you have to really do is be able to focus solely on your own play, to go back through videos of your gameplay, whether that be through stream recordings, if you use fraps to record your gameplay, or if you use the in-game replay to review points in the game that were turning points that either led to a loss or a victory through that particular play, and look at what you did and whether or not you contributed to that particular that game-winning play. It's really important to be incredibly proactive in self-evaluation, and I think that's probably true in more things than just being a pro gamer. Number 4, you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot of things. It's really hard at any age, I think, to balance a scrim schedule while also practicing outside of scrims. So if you're a student, you have to balance schoolwork, social life, and scrims. Scrims, especially in Smite, I don't know about other games, again, but typically you're going to end up scrimming anywhere between like 6 p.m. Eastern to 7, and going all the way to like 10 or 11. It depends on what teams you scrim. Some scrim only like 3 games, regardless of quality, which is kind of shit. But some will go, some go forever. And that's a time where you typically would be like, oh, I'm going to go out and have dinner with my friends. I'm going to have dinner with my family. I'm going to go spend time, with the people around me that I care about. And it's important that you maintain your relationships with these people, but you're going to have to put a lot more effort into doing it at a different time, because you're going to lose that typically allotted time that you have for those particular activities. You have to take number 5. This is the one that I failed so miserably that I really feel like it was the most drastic thing that I needed to improve on, and have been recently since last year. You have to take care of yourself. This is exercise, this is your diet, this is your sleep schedule, and Smite players in particular, a lot of people fail colossally in this regard. One player that does not do so, however, that I have a lot of respect for, would be El Chapo. He is the jungler for Soar on Xbox One. And what he does is really, really great. He plans his meals, he exercises a ton. He's really come along in the past year. If you follow him on Twitter or whatever, you could really see that he's really taken a lot of steps to improve his health. The only thing I think maybe you could be critical of him might be his sleep schedule, but obviously, I don't interact with Chapo that much, but it does feel like he's, his stream schedule has him up late, and I don't know what he does outside of Smite. I'm not sure if he's a student or if he has a job on the side or anything like that. It could be very well that he's getting, his 8 hours of sleep or whatever. But it's so important. It helps you so much. Like in the past couple weeks, I've started, doing little changes in my diet. I've been taking some supplements to, cover the fact that I don't necessarily have the best diet to get vitamins that I need. And I've been exercising more. And I've found that when I've been playing games, I'm able to focus so much more. I play so much better. Between that and sleeping better, like I've really been doing a lot better. And it's something that you could really improve on. When I was playing in the Pro League before, I'd wake up like 20 minutes before scrims. I'd play like shit because I wasn't awake yet. I was tired. I hadn't eaten. I was fucking pissed off. And then I'd be up all night doing shit that, I wasn't conducive to anything. I wouldn't like exercise, none of that shit. You got to take care of yourself. It's one of the easiest ways to improve your quality of life and your quality of gameplay. Number 6, you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot. There is no single player that is playing professionally right now that has not gone through the fucking ringer. Um, every player has had dramatic failures, even in like their golden age. You know what I mean? Like, you will find several times as you progress that you want to give up, that you want to stop playing, that it feels like the world is fucking against you, and you have to take those experiences, you have to learn from them, and you have to push forward. You can't get hung up on the things that you do wrong and the things that you wish you had done differently. You have to learn, move forward, and do the best you can with what you have. You can't sit there and wallow in whatever is making you feel bad about what you did. None of that shit. You can't be negative about what's going on, because if you let it eat at you, you're just never going to improve. Number 7, understanding how to deal with organizations. This is huge for, I'm pretty sure, all esports, I imagine. If you are good at something, people will take interest and want to use you to further themselves. So you have to be able to identify when a deal is good for you and understand what is expected of you going into a contract. It's important that you don't just sign whatever the fuck people put in front of you. I one time, early on in my Smite career, when I was on Vicious and Delicious with Heater, Met Yankee, Ecliptium, and Skilly. It was Skilledon. We got an offer from this organization that was super shit tier, and they sent us a contract. And people were like talking about it, and I was reading through this thing, and it was shit. It was like we didn't get money. We had to give them parts of our winnings. They wouldn't pay for anything for us to travel. It was literally just you guys can use our name, which had no weight to it, and you will get nothing, but you will give us money. And that was it. And the worst part is that there were typos in this contract. It was literally the most shit tier contract I've ever read. You have to be able to look at something and say, this is garbage. You have to know your worth. When you do find someone that's worth playing for, you have to understand the expectations that come with it. Particularly, I can speak from the point of NA. I can't talk about other regions, but the nature of what it means to be in esports in North America right now is that a lot of the money that is generated by the organizations that are based in North America is through sponsorships. So your job as essentially an employee of the organization, a representative, is to promote them. And the way you promote them is through streaming. It's very easy to be critical of people who stream a lot while also playing this game. But it's necessary for them to create a living. You don't get to just get a salary from this organization. You have to promote their gear, you have to promote their sponsors, you have to promote their brand. That's part of the reason that they're going to employ you, because you have enough skill to be noticed on a big stage, whether that be through, in the instance of high-res, their streamed tournaments or LANs. But it's also your responsibility to have a personality in the community that allows your fan base to connect with you and associate the products that you use through the organization with your success and to promote their use. So you really, really, really have to be ready to commit to these kinds of things. Personalities and communicative skills. Holy shit. All right. So dream scenario is that you are going to end up on a team with people who agree with your idea on how the game should be played. They understand when you want to be aggressive, when you want to be defensive, how you like to invade, when you like to call objectives, how you like to siege, how you like to prepare a gank. All these things are super important. And the issue is, when you really look at it, is that the top level of play is already a very, very, very small number of players, and everyone's going to have differing opinions on what works for them and what works in competitive, and you have to be ready to communicate as a human being with these people. You have to be willing to open dialogue, because there are going to be instances where you and another player are going to disagree. I think a good example of this, obviously this isn't meant to rag on or insult the players on Noble, but they made a decision going into the LAN to replace their mid laner Moswall with their sub coach ex mid player Duro. I think that would effectively sum up what his role was on the team prior to the LAN. And the reasoning in the tweet longer that Woman had wrote was essentially that it was hard for the team environment to have the kind of synergy that Moswall and Mirage had. It seemed like there was a lack of communication, and when they extended their hand and offered to go through VODs to help him improve, it seems like there was some sort of issue with that, and it didn't end up happening. You have to, especially in Smite with the age of the players, you have to be insistent. You can't just say, I will help you. You have to force them to, I guess. You have to approach it with the right mindset. You can't just say, this is what's going wrong and this is why you need to help. You need to open up a dialogue which allows them to discuss their side of what's happening. And you have to be able to be level-headed about it and understand that it's a team game. Your competitive environment, you are the sum of the parts. No individual player is going to single-handedly carry every single game. It's impossible. It's impossible for a single person to always perform at a level that transcends everyone else and transcends the weaknesses that are going to be on your team. So being able to communicate with the people on your team is super important. When I was on COG, I was woefully, dreadfully awful in this regard. I'll never forget that it was our first or second week of scrims. We were scrimming Old Elevate, and I took a 1v1 with Gumi, and we actually killed each other. We traded out without anyone intervening. We just both hit the last auto on each other at the same time, and it was crazy. I thought it was hilarious, and DJ was upset with me because he had been calling to set up a Gold Fury, and I had literally pushed up into the tier 2 to kill Gumi and traded out, and I took what he said and misconstrued it and literally changed the way I played for the entire season. He said that he literally just wants me to play in a way that isn't risky, and I took that as I have to play like a bitch all the time, and that was wrong. And the reason that I took it that way is because I didn't take the time to open a dialogue with DJ and talk to him about what he meant. I just took what he said and let my mind run away with it. And that you can't do that. You have to be willing to talk with players. You're all doing this, to do your best. Nobody on that team wants their fellow teammate to fail. They want everyone to be as successful as they can be, so that way they can be the most competitive. So you have to understand that people are going to talk to you in a way that might annoy you, but generally speaking, they're doing things the way they do them is because that's how they learn best, and they don't always know what's going to work for you, so they do what works for them instead. And you have to be willing to take that into consideration. You can't just always be you can't say that you're willing to take criticism and then be insulted, I guess, like I was, or take it too personally. That was one of my biggest mistakes by far. Moving forward, critical thinking skills. So this is probably, I'd rank this really high, really, 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 really high on things that you need to be. One of the things that you need to be really good at. It is not enough to be mechanically sound at the highest level. You cannot just be really good at pressing your buttons. Um, People will tell you that all the time. Like if you ask Baskin, why are you so fucking good at this video game? He's gonna be like, I don't know, dude. I press my buttons, and you're gonna be like, fuck you, dude. That's lame. I press my buttons too. And the reality is that everyone that plays this game professionally, at some level, thinks about the game far more than your average player. They have to think about what picks are good, why are they good, and what can I do to be better against these picks. Another team that does really well in this regard is Eager, current Eager. They are very good at looking at what the best teams are trying to play and what their plan is going in, and very good at breaking it down to its core components, finding out why it works, and what they can do to make it unsuccessful. It's such an incredibly important thing to be able to create your own metagame and understand why it works for you and how it's going to play into the rest of your games. I think there's something to be said as well for this is a little bit off topic on the in regards to critical thinking skills, but it's also in regards to being able to get everyone on the same wavelength when it comes to this. You have to get everyone on board with what you plan to do. And it's important to plan things in advance. This is something that a lot of teams will struggle with. A lot of people like to rely on their instincts. They think that that's really reliable. And I'll never forget this because my father, I actually talked about it when I was coaching for Envy, and I was like, I don't know how to explain to people how it's not good to do that. And he said that instincts are probably the most unreliable thing in a team environment because instincts rely solely on the information that you have in front of you based on your five senses, and it's making an instinctual or an immediate reaction to what's happening. And your four other teammates, if you're not communicating what you're thinking, aren't going to be able to do that, and you can't put into words in a way that doesn't clutter comms what's going on there. So it's important to have a plan to mitigate what happens in those instinct moments. You have to go in and say, like, as Thor, I'm looking to poke X player. I'm going to wall them. If I wall them and they don't have beads, I want you to do this. And what that does is it takes a lot of the process of reacting to what's happening in front of you away, so things can feel more immediate, so they can happen more quickly. And if you're able to plan invades, like we want to invade speed buff on its first respawn, which is going to be around 316. So you want to be reminding your teammates like about a minute and a half in advance and say, I want to invade. Here are the circumstances that we need to make a reality for the invade to be good. People need to back and get boots 2, boots 3, tier 2 of whatever item they're going to have at that point, and they have to be able to get there as the buff's respawning. If these circumstances can't be met, this is our plan following up. If you can't do something like as basic as that kind of planning, then what it becomes is you have 5 players relying on instincts without communicating effectively, making everything super unreliable, and that's when sort of lower end teams start to look disjointed. Somebody will hit CC or will stack CC, or somebody will try to use a damaging ability on a knockup, and the damage will go under or whatever the fuck happens with knockups in this game. You know what I mean? Weird stuff happens, and things that should end up looking really clean end up getting really sloppy. So that's something to always keep in your mind. Using these 2 factors, hospital team environment promotes growth rather. I kind of went over number 10, I think. Yeah, I did. Okay. 11. Your ability to adapt. All right. This is something that is obvious, but I failed also incredibly awfully at this. Where to start? So, when I was in the SPL, I played a lot of Neath, Shablanke, and a bit of Huyi when he got buffed. Um, and the reason I picked these characters is because I liked that they could clear without losing gold pretty easily. And I liked the ability to clear the wave and rotate. But I also could fight if I had to, but it wasn't required. Part of the reason that I also got really stuck on Neath and Shablanke was that I previously, and was most successful on, I think, in hindsight, was a mid laner. And whenever I heard a team fight going on, I so badly wanted to be there because I felt like, I swear to God, if I was in mid lane right now and I could see the fight that was happening, I could make calls, I could make plays, and everything would change. So what would happen is I would clear the wave, I would go into the jungle, I would like half rotate, and then I would lose my wave pressure that I had had from clearing before. And what would happen is enemy ADC would clear the wave, I'd be walking back into lane, they'd beat my fucking ass because I can't contest them because the wave's going under tower and I can't afford to lose the gold. So I have to use my escape to jump over that person after taking like half my HP. And because of the way the jump worked, they would still basically be close to me enough to land autos, so they'd be able to read where my jump was, auto me, hit abilities. That'd be really fucking low. And then what would happen is enemy ADC could either rotate to mid and create a 4v3 situation, or they could go to gold, and I was being a fucking shitlord. And my lack of ability to understand what the fuck I was doing all the time, because I swear to God, this happened to me every game. It even happened to me in the Gauntlet, I swear to God, against Pandacat, I did the same shit. Although I still think in the Gauntlet, I played better than I ever did in the SPL, because I wasn't nearly as stressed out about how I was going to perform. I was just going to do my best, and that was whatever. But I would do this every single game, and I was never willing to go back and look at it and say, holy shit, I am super predictable, and it's super easy to play against me because I do the same thing every fucking time. And I wish I had been willing to do that, because I ended up in this situation. So being able to understand your strengths and weaknesses as a player and making changes to your gameplay so that you aren't always predictable is super important. Coincidentally, one of the players that is best at demonstrating this is adapting. Adapting, it is such a pleasure to watch him play Smite. As somebody who, I understand the game at a high level, even though I might not always play at it. And he is so consistent at having a good game without doing the same thing every time. Sometimes he'll gank the shit out of Dimmy's lane at like level 2 or 3. He'll give up mid camps to fire elementals, which for most junglers that's a big fucking no-no. But he doesn't give a shit. And he will successfully ganked, I think it was Zeros at the Group B LAN, right? Group B, Group C? Group C. I think Zeros was like Erlang, and that thing was Hunbats. I swear, I shit you not. He's level 2. He jumps on the Erlang after the Erlang has used his abilities, I guess. Slows him, and him and Dimmy just fuck the shit out of Zeros. And then the game's like busted wide open, because when solo lane dies that early, it's really hard for them to come back. Like, it's crazy. And other times he'll go and gank dual lane early, or like he doesn't just have one standard way of playing. And it's super phenomenal to watch him adjust everything that he's doing every game. So being able to adapt your playstyle to be less predictable is super important. And a way to change that is to look at VODs, look at the information that the other player had on what you were doing and what you could have done differently. Because there's never one single play you can make in a situation. So it's important to know all your options. 12. What it will be like playing in pubs and dealing with people after you've made it. Jeez. People have very different experiences in this, I think. For me, I have had the least enjoyable experience in Smite after I made it in the SPL. Um, when I was in it, I it was awful. People were so shitty to me. I think that's just what happens. You know what I mean? Like, people want to beat your ass when you're a pro player. You get like focused on, um, and when people beat you, they want to like talk shit, and you gotta have thick skin when it when it comes to that. I'm a fucking pussy when it comes to that shit. I won't lie. These days I laugh about it. Like, I was streaming this morning, and I had two different people like talk shit to me that were like really angry that I was in their casual game queuing with my friends and having fun. Like, I don't know, they were really mad at me. It was really weird. But it's gonna happen. The game's gonna be very different for you. A lot of pros have Smurf accounts to mitigate that feeling, because there are expectations when you people like if you go into a game like if I solo queue and I get with a bunch of people that know me, they'll be like, "Oh, I fucking hate this guy. He's shit. We lose," or "Oh, Kabam, I love you. Can't wait to get carried." And usually in both those situations, we fucking lose. And it's never good. So, be ready for that. You can still have fun playing the game, but you have to understand that it is different. 13, okay. Okay. So, when I think of people being upset about age, I think of Lasses. Lasses, in my mind, forever, because him and Matty Pocket were the first people I watched when I was getting into Smite in 2012. And it's been a shame to see Lasses sort of phase out of Smite, but I understand why he wanted to get out. But I do think that when I've listened to him on his stream, he feels like his age has made it so being competitive is significantly harder. And I've also heard DM talk about like he's taken like reaction speed tests or whatever, and he feels like like I feel like he was able to do so much more when he was younger. And it's true. As you age, your reaction to speed does get slower, but it's not as dramatic as people make it out to be. And I'm not here to say that they're obviously like they're wrong in the way they feel, but they should. I do think it should be considered that your reaction speed does not get significantly slower until you're in your 50s. There's studies that have proved that you have very, very minor hits in reaction speed as you get older until that point in time. And the way that many people that play games mitigate this loss of reaction speed is by supplementing game knowledge in its place. Knowing what people can do on their characters beforehand instead of having to rely on instincts and reaction can really help you mitigate problems. Being smarter about the game, which is something that DM has also stressed a lot. He did it during the Group D LAN, which is saying pro players could be a lot better at the game if they knew more about the mechanics, the characters, and the counters, rather than relying on mechanics. I do think there's a lot of weight to that. I do think it's something that people should consider. A lot of times what happens with these games is that these pro players, they'll play too much. In the case of League, I've heard a lot of, which is, I guess MOBAs in general, or RTSs, where you have to click a lot. It's really bad for your wrist, especially like if you don't do exercises and wrist exercises, or a lot of like caring for yourself. You overwork yourself, you play too much, and then you have to retire. You lose your will to play because you've burnt yourself out. You gotta be careful with that shit. You know what I mean? But yeah, I do think that people. I think there's a player in Dota. Oh man, I swear to God, he's on EG, I think, or he was a couple years ago. I think his name was like Fear. He's like he's an older player, and he won the international, I think, a year or two ago. He won with Symbale. But yeah, he's an older guy. He won. Like, older players could do well. They can succeed. Don't let yourself think that you can't play because of your age. Immediately, don't just count yourself out, I think, is the lesson there. 14. Self-motivating. I actually kind of went over this before. don't focus on all the shit that you do wrong. Um, Self-motivating, I guess, is actually counterintuitive to what I said, discipline over motivation. But don't, I guess you could be critical of yourself, but don't do so in a way that makes you think you're the worst player in the world. Don't constantly critique yourself in a way that makes you sort of sad, that makes you think that you're getting worse. This is something that I did a lot too, is anytime, like I swear to God, there was a period of time where whenever I missed an auto, I'd be like, dude, I'm so fucking shit. This is the worst. And then I would miss more autos. And like, if I had one bad play a game, I would sit there and think about that bad play the whole game. And you can't do that. You cannot do that. You have to focus on what you're good at, what you're bad at, what you can do to improve what you're bad at, and what you can do to use your strengths more often. Figure out what makes you vital and important to your team, and how you can increase the period of time that you get to utilize what you're good at. I think that's really important. That's super important, yeah. Networking. All right. So, networking. There are, especially among the Challenger Cup players right now, I think, a lot of issues where people think that SPL is all about friends and being friends with the top players. And I'd be lying if I said there wasn't an element of truth to that. However, the reason that networking is important, not just in Smite, but in everything in life, because it is very rare that you will ever get anywhere based just on your qualifications alone. Knowing the right people, being friends with the right people is super important. And something to put into consideration is that these like pro players aren't going to just be like, you're my friend, you should come play with me. It's going to be like, you are my friend and you are good at the game, and I think I can mold you into the player that you need to play at the top level. That is how it happens. It is not simply, I like you, you get to play. It is, I like you and I see an opportunity to play a game with you and sort of forego the issues of synergy while also improving our chances of winning, big tournaments, getting good SPL placing, things like that. Nobody ever gets to network without having some sort of merit themselves. There is no reason for, let's say, I don't know, great player to give opportunity to shit player for like any reason. It is always going to be, I can get benefit out of this. Nobody ever does something like that for charity. And that's something that people need to get out of their heads immediately. I understand that there are Challenger Cup players that think that they are super deserving, but there is never not a reason for why somebody is brought onto a team. That is something that needs to be considered. 16. Dealing with nerves. Okay. I was so bad with my nerves during the online stages. I was worried about a million things. I was worried about the stability of my internet. My internet in Florida when I lived there, which was during my SPL period for half of it. I actually had a set where I disconnected, which was against AFK at the time. I had nerves because I don't know. I was so worried about being the worst person on my team. I had been historically one of the better players on my team in performances. So going from that to being what was essentially the weight on my team really bothered me. And instead of doing what I could to improve it, I shut down. I don't know. And it hurts to sort of look back on it, but Aurora approached me at one point. He said, it just doesn't seem like you care anymore. And at the time, I was so angry that he had said that, but he was right. In a sense, I couldn't get myself to care about it because I didn't feel like I could improve. I guess was the best way to put it. I felt like everyone just thought I was shit, and that no matter what I did, there was always like I was always just bad, and it hurt a lot because at the right before we went to super regionals last year, we finally came together. Everyone was like really upset. We were losing to a team of like people that we put together to like just be able to scrim against. Like we were losing to them all the time. It was Mask, it was Glick, it was random solo laner, whoever they could get at the time. Sometimes it was Walrus, sometimes it was it was Dante LaFargo. It was literally it was never the same solo laner. We were losing that, and then it was Met Yankee and Vesalius in the duel, and we were losing like bad. They were beating our ass, and we all came together, and everyone there was literally like, I just think everybody on this team thinks I'm shit. Can you imagine like the kind of nerves that you have going into those situations where everyone thinks they're going to be critiqued on everything they do? Shit. You have to be able to identify what's making you anxious and communicate with your team and create an environment where that doesn't exist. You can't have performance anxiety. So you have to do everything you can to mitigate that. And then at LAN, this is the weirdest thing, because when we all got to LAN, I was the most comfortable playing at LAN. LAN was the least stressful thing for me, because I had my teammates next to me, and I knew that whatever was going to happen, we were going to work through it together. If we lost, I would know that we were trying our best, and that was what I needed. But some people at LAN, they freak out. They're on stage. People can see them on the webcams or whatever. They get really in the side of their own heads. They're like, oh, these games super matter now. It's finding ways to deal with this that will make you one of the best players for sure. Because everyone has nerves in either online or at LAN. And lastly, this is probably going to be frustrating for a lot of people, but luck has a lot to do with your success and the ability to get into a league of any sport, I imagine. All of these factors that I've discussed are intended to minimize the amount of luck you need to be successful, but you will always, always, always have to have a bit of luck. Whether or not your living conditions allow you to pursue a career in esports will be luck. I was lucky in this regard. I had saved money from when I had worked when I was younger, and I also come from a well-off family, so I was able to commit more time to being able to practice and study the game that most people wouldn't have been allowed. And I had been able to get through college and graduate and get my degree, and have this opportunity to look at a game and say, I think this esport is going somewhere and I'm good enough to pursue this, which is lucky. I was lucky that the timing worked out that way. Smite started getting quite a bit bigger as I graduated college. Like, that's sick. Like, the first Worlds happened the winter after I had graduated. Like, think about, like, it was crazy. It was crazy how everything was lining up. That was lucky. The fact that DJ approached me out of all the ADCs he could have approached to come into the fall split was pretty lucky. I was lucky that he was looking for somebody that wasn't as young, because he wanted to have somebody that could commit more time to the game and would probably be more mature, although I don't think I ended up being as mature as I should have been for my age. But that's the only factor that was really lucky. And then it fell into my lap when this team was forming who my support was going to be. And originally the team was supposed to have Matty Pocket as a support. And I decided that I wanted a roar. And rather than say, okay, Kabam, we don't want you, they chose to go with my decision. And that's crazy. It's crazy that I had that much pull on a team that was being formed. When in reality, like, I had only picked up ADC because I had failed to make it to Worlds. Um, and I was like, I just want to have fun. I don't feel like I want to play mid right now. And Sprint 3 is sick, and Heartseeker is sick, so I'll play ADC. And that's how I landed in ADC. I had dabbled in it before, but I had mostly been a mid player. Like, I don't know. Changes that I made were lucky because it was intended just to be for fun. And getting in, staying isn't luck, but getting in is luck, I think. But yeah, I think that covers a lot of things that go into being a professional in Smite. This has been pretty long-winded, I think. Yeah, 50 minutes. I doubt anyone will watch all of this, but I think going through this, I feel a lot better. My competitive edge has slowly been coming back to me. And I think, you know, whatever the future holds, whether I choose to come back for Season 4, if the changes are good, and I can find a team that I want to play with, which there is potential, and they want to play with me, obviously. Or if, you know, this new update for Paragon goes through, and I like it, I might look at that. Or maybe I'll stop playing video games in a way that's this competitive altogether. But overall, I feel really good. That's more what this video is about than anything. Thanks for listening, and I hope this has been informative. See ya.